New footage of Keegan Bradely and Scottie Scheffler is going viral, and it's shattering the golf world in ways nobody could have predicted. What was supposed to stay behind locker room doors, private conversations meant only for the team, is now blowing up into the sport's biggest controversy in decades. But here's the thing, there's far more beneath this clip than anyone's admitting. Far more complexity, far more nuance, and far more at stake than a simple loss on the golf course. Today, I'm exposing the complete truth behind the chaos, behind the viral shockwave that consumed not just the golf community, but mainstream media, social networks, and water cooler conversations across the globe. Within the first hour of the footage hitting the internet, it had been viewed over 2 million times. By hour 6, that number had climbed to 15 million. The algorithms were working overtime, feeding the beast, pushing it to every corner of the digital landscape. Split screens show Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram feeds exploding with activity as the story spreads like wildfire. I definitely made a mistake on the course setup. I should have listened a little bit more to my intuition, and for whatever reason, that wasn't the right way to set the course up. We didn't expect the greens to be this soft. We tried to set the course up to help our team. Obviously, it wasn't the right decision. You know, I think anytime you're the leader of a team, you're the captain, the coach, whatever. We talked about this last night. You have to take the accolades when things go well, and you absolutely need to take the blame for when things don't go well. There's no getting around it. That's what leadership means. Bradely confesses in the dimly lit room, his wrinkled golf polos and trembling voice capturing the weight of leadership and the search for absolution. The footage didn't just leak onto the internet, it exploded. Within hours, X, formerly Twitter, was absolutely ablaze with activity. Trending hashtags appeared by the dozen. Some were angry, some were sympathetic, some were creative, and some were downright cruel. Hashtags like hashtag Bradely debacle and hashtag Ryder Cup meltdown were trending globally within minutes. It was the kind of internet inferno that golf hadn't seen since the Patrick Reed family drama era. The accusations, the public disputes, and the family conflict had played out in real time on social media back then. But this time, it wasn't a sideshow. It wasn't a distraction from the main event. This was the main event. Screenshots of trending topics, social media posts, and news headlines flash across the screen. The clip itself is deceptively calm at first glance. Keegan Bradely sits in a dimly lit room, his golf polos wrinkled from the day's competition and emotion. His expression is equal parts captain and confessor, a man bearing the weight of leadership, but also searching for absolution. He leans forward slightly, his voice trembling just barely perceptibly, saying words that would soon echo across the entire sports world. Scottie carried the weight of the world out there. It should have been noble. It should have been uplifting, a captain praising his best player. Instead, it came across like a man trying to justify a bad decision to a mirror, trying to convince himself as much as anyone else. Within minutes of the footage spreading, the narrative split down the middle like a lightning strike. One half of golf Twitter canonized Bradely as a leader. Class act. Ride or die. Captain with compassion. They saw vulnerability as strength. They saw someone willing to take responsibility in an era where accountability is rarer than an albatross. The other half saw something completely different. They saw a man auditioning for the next season of Crisis PR Sports Edition. One viral post perfectly captured this perspective. He's not defending Scottie, he's defending himself. Classic misdirection. The discourse became toxic, passionate, unforgiving. Then came the conspiracy theories. Delicious, chaotic, and absolutely impossible to resist for the internet's hungry masses. Some claim the footage was part of an official PGA recording that had been secretly spliced and leaked by an insider, perhaps a disgruntled employee, perhaps someone with a grudge against the American team. Others swore it came from a player's phone, recorded without anyone's knowledge or consent, a violation of trust and privacy. One anonymous Reddit account, which quickly gained traction in the golf subreddits, even suggested it was a European SCOP operation, a calculated move to demoralize the American team by releasing damaging information at the worst possible moment. Digital graphics show theories spreading across the internet as the story continues. The truth didn't matter anymore. Not really. In the age of information overload and viral content, the narrative had become more important than the facts, and the narrative was absolutely nuclear. As golf journalists and analysts began to dissect every frame, every word, every micro-expression, something genuinely eerie started to happen. The sport, long protected by traditions of etiquette and restraint, suddenly looked profoundly human, messy, emotional, raw. Golf had always prided itself on composure, on the stiff upper lip, on dignity in defeat. But here, in this leaked footage, was none of that. This was the kind of drama you'd expect from reality television, not from Augusta's hallowed fairways. This was bachelor-level emotional breakdown disguised in golf attire. Rory McIlroy and Ian Poulter, always ready with a strategic subtweet, added fuel to the fire with cryptic posts about truth revealing itself in defeat. The translation was clear to anyone paying attention. They were loving every second of this American implosion. By sunset on the day the footage broke, it had been remixed into countless TikToks, fan edits, and meme compilations. The line, "Scottie carried the weight of the world," became the new "we were on a break" for golf Twitter. It was endlessly quoted, remixed, turned into jokes, turned into breakup analogies. It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was an awakening. Golf, the sport that had always hidden behind tradition, was finally exposed. But to understand the context of this leak, we have to go back to where it all began, to Bethpage Black, home of one of America's most prestigious golf courses. Bethpage Black was supposed to be America's redemption arc, the fortress where pride and power and home course advantage would silence Europe once and for all, where the roaring American galleries would lift their team to unprecedented heights. Instead, it became the burial ground for the U.S. team's confidence. The crowd came armed with chants and flags. They left whispering "what happened?" with confusion and disappointment etched across their faces. Day one was the start of the unraveling, the moment when everyone realized this wasn't going to be the American victory parade they'd envisioned. Scottie Scheffler, the unshakable world number one, the man who had dominated professional golf all season, was teamed with Russell Henley in what was meant to be an unstoppable duo, a pairing that looked unbeatable on paper. Two of America's best working in tandem, representing the pinnacle of American golf excellence. But golf, ever the cruel poet, had other plans. Rory McIlroy and Tommy Fleetwood dismantled them with surgical precision. Every shot was calculated. Every strategy was executed perfectly. It was like watching chess players who had studied their opponent for months, finally getting their moment. Every time Scheffler's ball landed in the rough, you could feel the air thicken, the confidence drain, the momentum shift. The cheers from the crowd grew hesitant. The roars turned to nervous whispers. By the back nine, the New York crowds that had started the day with unbridled optimism had turned into something more like funeral murmurs. The energy had completely reversed. "Scottie's our anchor. He's our guy. He just wants to win for the team. He's giving everything out there. We're going to keep fighting. We're only down a bit. There's a lot of golf left to play," Bradely said, wearing a strained smile that betrayed his optimistic words. The words of a captain trying to project confidence, trying to keep his team's morale intact, trying to believe in a comeback that was already slipping away. But they rang hollow. Even Bradely seemed to know it. Montage of subsequent match footage shows more losses and European celebrations. Noble words until the losses kept coming. The pair's second match, this time with Colin Morikawa, ended in another defeat. Then another, and another. Suddenly, the American machine, the juggernaut that had been expected to dominate, was rusting before everyone's eyes, in real time, on live television, in front of millions of people. And then came the fateful comment, now immortalized in the leaked video and destined to haunt Bradely for years to come. Bradely reflecting on day one's chaos, on the losses mounting, on the strategy that hadn't worked, mutters something in the dimly lit team room that would change everything. "We set it up for ourselves and ended up helping them." The internet seized on this admission instantly. Within minutes, golf Twitter had connected the dots and understood what he was really saying. It was a confession, an admission of a strategic error that may have cost them the entire competition. You see, the Americans had made a conscious decision to soften the greens at Bethpage. The theory was simple: soften the greens, and Scheffler's and the American team's superior length and power would give them a massive advantage. They could attack pins more aggressively. They could take more risks. Their driving distance and ball striking would dominate, but the setup backfired spectacularly, catastrophically. It handed Europe the edge in short-game finesse, exactly the skill set where European players like McIlroy and Fleetwood excel. The softer greens meant that iron play and approach shots would hold better. The short game would matter more. And Europe's subtle touch, their craftsmanship around the green, their years of playing on links courses with firm conditions, suddenly became the perfect counter to the American strategy. It wasn't just bad strategy, it was poetic self-sabotage of the highest order. Fans seized on this revelation instantly. The story became irresistible. The captain had tried to game the system, had tried to set up the course to favor his team's strengths, and in doing so, had inadvertently set up his team for failure. It was the kind of plot twist that Hollywood screenwriters would reject as too on the nose, too perfect, too poetic. Yet here it was, playing out in real life. By the end of day 2, the scoreboard read 5-3 to Europe, but the real story was written on Scottie Scheffler's face, blank, exhausted, haunted by the weight of expectation, the weight of being the world's best player and feeling powerless to change the tide. His shoulders slumped like a man who'd spent too long carrying not just the team, but the illusion of invincibility. The illusion that talent and skill and dominance could overcome everything. The internet pounced, flooding feeds with side-by-side memes of prime Scottie versus Ryder Cup Scottie. The contrast was almost painful to witness. Golf, usually so polite, so buttoned up, so professional, had finally found its villain and its tragedy. And both wore the same uniform. But the story wasn't over, not even close. Because on the 15th green, something shifted. Something snapped. Something that would become the viral moment within the viral moment. The 15th green should have been just another moment in a long, miserable match. Just one more hole in a losing effort. Instead, it became a crime scene of pride, pressure, and public implosion. It started as heckling, a few beer-fueled taunts from the New York crowd, a sarcastic cheer after another missed putt, the kind of crowd energy that can either lift a player or destroy him, depending on the moment and the player's mental state. And then, in a single blink, Scheffler snapped. Cameras caught him stepping back from the ball, jaw tight, eyes burning with intensity toward the crowd. His body language screamed frustration. His face screamed, "I'm done." Justin Rose glanced over, reading the room. Tommy Fleetwood smirked, a micro-expression of satisfaction at seeing the American's composure crack. Bryson DeChambeau muttered something, trying to calm the storm, trying to bring Scheffler back from the edge. It didn't work. The damage was done. Within hours, fan-shot videos surfaced online. Unedited, shaky, raw footage captured on smartphones by people in the gallery who realized they were witnessing something significant. One video showed Scheffler mouthing something under his breath. Another captured a European caddy muttering what lip readers claimed was, "He's losing it." The PGA's sanitized broadcast version looked absolutely tame compared to what fans were uploading directly to social media. The networks had edited out the raw emotion, but the internet had captured it all. Bradely tried to douse the flames in his post-round interview, telling reporters it was just emotions running high. Scottie's a competitor. That's what competitors do. They care deeply. But in the leaked footage, his tone was different. More haunted, more concerned, more aware of what had just happened. "You could feel it," he said quietly, the tremor in his voice unmistakable. The air changed on that green. Everything shifted. Social media declared it the green explosion. Golf memes went absolutely feral. One viral edit compared Scheffler's outburst to Kanye West's "I'ma let you finish" moment, complete with dramatic orchestral music and slow-motion replays. Another labeled it Caddyshack Apocalypse Edition, drawing parallels to the chaos of that famous golf comedy film. A third simply read, "Scottie Scheffler has left the building." But beneath the mockery was something deeply, profoundly human. For years, Scheffler had been golf's steady hand, the calm face in chaos. The player who never seemed rattled, never seemed bothered, never seemed anything other than composed and collected. Seeing him lose composure, seeing him feel, seeing him break. It was shocking to everyone who witnessed it. It was a reminder that even the polished world of professional golf isn't immune to emotional combustion, that even the best of the best can snap under pressure. The 15th green became symbolic. a patch of grass where golf's mask slipped, where etiquette cracked, where politeness evaporated like water under the Texas sun. The sport that prided itself on control, on decorum, on always maintaining composure, had finally revealed its raw, unfiltered nerve, and millions of people couldn't look away. When Europe finally hoisted the Ryder Cup, champagne spraying like confetti under the unforgiving lights of Bethpage, the American locker room looked like a wake, a funeral, a place where dreams had died. The laughter was gone. The swagger that had existed before the competition had evaporated. Players sat slumped in silence, their shadows stretching long against the tiled floor, as if even the walls were embarrassed to witness what had just happened. Reporters hovered outside like undertakers, whispering condolences to one another about what had gone wrong. How had America, the favorite, the team with the best players, managed to lose so convincingly? And then into this cathedral of quiet failure walked Keegan Bradely, eyes swollen, voice trembling, grief personified in a golf polo and team apparel. Scottie cared more about Russell than himself. The whole time, he never stopped trying. Even when things weren't going well, even when the losses were piling up, he was thinking about his teammates, about Russell, about the team, Bradely said, his words coming out choked, almost strangled. His eyes were glistening, his hands were shaking slightly. This wasn't the composed captain. This was a man completely undone by failure. On paper, it sounded noble. The words of a captain defending his best player, praising his teammates' character, even in loss. On camera, it looked like heartbreak. Pure, unfiltered heartbreak. But online, the internet had no mercy for vulnerability. Within minutes, the video was chopped, captioned, and memified. One tweet read, "Bro giving a breakup speech, not a press conference." It had 200,000 likes within an hour. Another sneered, "This isn't leadership, it's group therapy. He needs a therapist, not a podium." A third simply posted the crying emoji repeated 40 times. And yet, beneath the mockery and the cruelty, something about Bradley's rawness struck a nerve with a different segment of the audience. It wasn't polished. It wasn't PR trained. It wasn't focus grouped or approved by a media consultant. It was painfully, embarrassingly human. Because for once, a professional golfer and team captain wasn't talking like a brand ambassador or a stats machine. He was talking like a believer who'd watched faith collapse in real time, who'd watched his team fail, who'd felt responsible for that failure. Sometimes the pressure just eats you alive. You carry it. You carry it for your team. You carry it for your country. And sometimes you just can't hold it anymore, Bradely said quietly, his voice trembling but his eyes steady despite the tremor. It wasn't meant for the world to hear. It was supposed to be a private reflection, a moment of vulnerability shared only with his team or close confidants. But it became the defining quote of the entire meltdown. The moment that captured everything about what had happened, the pressure, the failure, the emotional toll. Within hours, it became a viral meme template. Screenshots captioned, "Me after trying to be productive for 10 minutes," or "Me after my first week of 2025. Still, beneath the chaos and the cruelty of the internet, there was an odd dignity to Bradley's breakdown. He didn't lash out or deflect blame onto anyone else. He didn't make excuses. He spoke like a man still searching for meaning in defeat, still trying to understand what had gone wrong. He never stopped showing up for his teammates, Bradely said of Scheffler, his voice stronger now. Even when the world thought he was done, even when people were criticizing him online, he still showed up. That has to count for something. It was vulnerable, it was messy, and it was absolutely undeniably viral. Real people scrolling through clips at midnight in their homes heard something the pundits didn't. They heard vulnerability, honesty, a flash of authenticity in a sport that spends millions hiding emotion behind polite claps and blank expressions. It was uncomfortable, sure, but it was real. And in 2025, that's rarer than you might think. By the next morning, the leaked video had transformed Keegan Bradley into an accidental philosopher, a man whose words had taken on a life of their own in the cultural zeitgeist. Near the end of the footage, voice breaking, but eyes steady, a man who had cried but refused to completely crumble, Bradley said something that would echo across the internet for months. Sometimes you lose beautifully. And that has to count for something. The phrase exploded. Lose beautifully. It was printed on t-shirts within 48 hours, remixed into TikTok edits with trending sounds, plastered across ironic merch drops. It became shorthand for grace in failure, for dignity in defeat, for finding meaning in loss. It was a tragic mantra for a team that fell short despite having the best players. A poetic reminder that even in humiliation, even in failure, even when everything goes wrong, there can be art, there can be beauty, there can be meaning. The phrase became so ubiquitous that it stopped being specifically about golf. It became about everyone who had ever lost something they thought they'd earned. Every startup that failed, every relationship that ended, every dream that didn't quite materialize. Lose beautifully became a rallying cry for people everywhere. When the firestorm refused to fade, when memes became mantras and the internet refused to move on to, the footage has instead mutated into legend. A modern myth of pressure, pride, and digital resurrection that refuses to fade. It lives online now, looping endlessly in TikTok edits, on sports podcasts dissecting every detail, in ironic Twitter threads where people find new meaning in old clips. It's become the moment golf stopped pretending to be graceful and got gloriously, painfully human. Keegan Bradley's name has become both curse and canon. To his detractors, he remains the captain who couldn't handle the heat, a man who cried in public and called it leadership, someone whose weakness was exposed for the world to see. To his supporters, he's something far rarer in professional sports, a martyr for authenticity, a man willing to be vulnerable when vulnerability isn't celebrated or rewarded, someone brave enough to say, "I was wrong," when admitting mistakes could destroy a career. Either way, his story refuses to fade. He is golf's new ghost, haunting leaderboards, whispered about in comment sections and golf forums, forever tied to the words "lose beautifully." Meanwhile, Scottie Scheffler has chosen the path of exile by silence. He's back winning smaller events, grinding quietly, ducking microphones like they're water hazards. Every time someone mentions the Ryder Cup, he smiles politely and changes the subject with the skill of someone who's been practicing that move for months. But that silence, it speaks volumes. It's the kind of quiet that drives speculation wild across the internet. Fans call it grace, pundits call it guilt. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Behind closed doors, the PGA scrambled for dignity. Press releases flew like confetti. Buzzwords about context, privacy breaches, and learning opportunities filled official statements. But the public had already decided this wasn't really about golf mechanics or course setups or team strategy. This was about the human crack under the trophy polish, the rawness of emotion that money can't manage and PR can't spin. The moment when the mask slipped and everyone saw what was underneath. For once, people cared not about who won. They cared about who broke first, who was brave enough or desperate enough to actually feel something real. The clip itself has become its own ecosystem. It plays in sports bars on loop. Reaction channels have built entire subscriber bases around analyzing it. Montage reels use it set to melancholic piano music as shorthand for human failure and resilience. Fans rewatch it not for golf insights, but for intimacy, for connection, for that shaky camera work, for that trembling voice. It's become a mirror for anyone who's ever lost something they thought they'd earned. As one viral comment declared, golf finally had its Real Housewives moment, and honestly, we needed it. And maybe that's the real legacy of 2025. Not Europe's victory, not Scheffler's slump, not the tactical mistakes or the course setup, but the moment golf dropped its perfect mask entirely. When a captain cried, when a player cracked, when a global audience realized that beneath every immaculate swing, every perfectly struck iron shot, beneath all the statistics and rankings and world records, lies the same chaos, fear, and hope as any other human heart. The sport didn't lose that day at Bethpage. It felt, and in feeling, it finally mattered. So what began as a private team debrief behind closed locker room doors became golf's biggest cultural explosion, a tale of heartbreak, humanity, and viral downfall that refused to be contained. Bradely and Scheffler's saga isn't just about losing the Ryder Cup. It's about losing control of the narrative in an age where everyone has a camera and an audience. And in 2025, that's the ultimate defeat.